Welcome back to Questing Beast. I am Ben. Today we'll be answering a question that I received over on the Knave 2nd Edition Kickstarter. Link to that right down there in the description below. And that question was about how is it that Knave 2nd Edition remains compatible with old school D&D when the way that the ability scores in Knave work looks so different than old school D&D. In Knave, everything is on a 0 to 10 scale. A new character starts with ability scores around 0, 1, 2, or 3 maybe. And then by the time they're at level 10, some of their scores might be at 10. Whereas in old school D&D, of course, everything's on a 3 to 18 scale. So how does this map and how does this all fit together that I've taken all of these different classes in old school D&D and I've condensed everything down to a single classless system on a 0 to 10 scale? It seems like it shouldn't work at all, but I found a way to make it work by looking at the underlying math in old school D&D. And I'll show you how those things can work together. First of all, let me explain how the system in Knave works for player characters, and then we'll see how that is compatible with older versions of D&D. So first of all, when you create a character in Knave, everything starts at a 0. You have your 6 ability scores. They're the standard ones from D&D: Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. They all start at 0, and you have 3 points that you can distribute among them. You can put all 3 points in one of these scores. You can spread them out so there's 1 in 3 different ones, or any way that you want to do it. It's totally up to you. You can pick it yourself, you can do it randomly, but the point is you have those 3 points to spend. Now, every time that you level up, you get 3 more points. However, after the first level, you can't put 2 or more of these points into the same ability. You have to spread them out into 3 different ones. So at level 1, you could have one ability score that's at a 3 with the rest being at 0. But as you level up, you'll have to spread them out more. And by the time you get to level 10, you could have a situation where some of your ability scores are all the way at 10, which is the maximum, and the rest are at 0. Or if you spread things out very evenly, you could have a situation where they're all at 5. Or you could have any mix between the two, which is probably the more normal way to do it. Now, when you do a check in Knave, first you pick a ability score that fits the situation. Like if you were trying to dodge out of the way of something, you would pick Dexterity. And then you roll a d20 and you add on the ability score from Dexterity and you try and hit a target number. By default, this is 16, but in theory, this could be adjusted anywhere from 10 up to 21, depending on what the Game Master thinks is appropriate. If you hit that target number, then you succeed at the task. Now, these 6 ability scores that we have in Knave are used for everything in the game. We do not have the 5 saving throws that old school D&D has. We don't have a separate system for THAC0 or for ascending attack bonuses. Everything just goes right off of those 6 ability scores. Strength is used for melee attacks and for feats of strength, like you would expect. Dexterity is used for dodging out of the way of things and being sneaky. Constitution is used to resist things like cold or illness and also adds more item slots so you can carry more things. Intelligence is good if you want to be a wizard. It's going to allow you to cast more spells per day, and those spells will be more powerful. Wisdom is an interesting one in that it is used for tracking and hunting, but it's also for mental resistance, resisting anything that's going to affect your brain. And it's also used for ranged combat because it's all about intuition and perception. Finally, charisma is really useful if you are a cleric type character because it's going to let you commune and make deals with your god more easily. It's also going to allow you to lead more followers, and of course, it's good in social situations. Now let's look at old school D&D, which has a whole bunch of different systems that are used in different circumstances. And I had to find a way to take all of these systems and condense them all down to a simple 0 to 10 scale that would map just onto these 6 ability scores. How did I do that? Well, one of the first things I did was I looked at the 5 saving throws in old school D&D. And what I noticed was that at level 1, especially if you look at the basic human type characters, not looking at the demi-humans, you'll see that the worst saving throw at level 1, characters will have about a 25% chance to succeed. So I mapped that onto starting characters in Knave. If you have a 0, which you're going to have in several at least of your ability scores at starting a new character, you're going to have a 25% chance of succeeding if you're trying to get a 16 when you're making a check, which is the standard difficulty for a check in Knave. Next, I looked at a level 10 character in old school D&D. And for most of them, what I saw was that by level 10, your best saving throw would give you about a 75% chance of success. Now, some of the demi-humans are a bit better than this, but I was just looking at it on average, especially for the main human type characters. So again, I mapped this onto Knave, where by level 10, if you've been pumping up at least 1 or 2 ability scores really high, you should have at least a 10 in 1 or 2 of them. And what that's going to allow you to do is have a 75% chance of success at a standard check. The same goes for melee combat. In old school D&D, if you have a fighter type character, then by the time you are level 10, you have a +7 to hit. At least that's the ascending attack bonus version of the rules if you're not using THAC0. And if you were a fighter, then you probably have a +1 or more likely a +2 in your strength to really help you out there. So it's more like a +9. So again, this maps pretty closely onto Knave, where if you've really been concentrating on being a combat-centric character, then by level 10, you would have a +9 or a +10 in your strength score, giving you that bonus to making attacks. The basic observation that runs underneath Knave, the whole system, is that in old school D&D, characters improve by about 5% each level. And then I just took that observation and I reworked the math a little bit so that at level 1, you had about a 25% chance of success. And by level 10, it was about a 75% chance of success, at least for the ability scores that you had been improving. Not everything was going to be that high. You would have a variation of different scores below 10 so that each character would feel different and have different strengths and weaknesses. Now, the only other issue of compatibility that I had to worry about when I was designing Knave was hit points and general character toughness. In Knave, the hit die for a player character is a d6. You get 1d6 at level 1, 2d6 at level 2, and so forth. But the issue is that the item slots in Knave also work as a kind of hit points. They can absorb damage and displace items that you had in them. And since you start out with 10 item slots at level 1, this means that you could start with as many as 16 hit points at level 1, which is quite a bit more than what you would see in old school D&D. However, as the characters level up, you start seeing this disparity from old school D&D hit points slowly start disappearing. For example, by level 10, a fighter in maybe BX D&D or old school essentials will have about 55 hit points, if they had maybe even a +1 in their constitution. Meanwhile, a character in Knave will be able to absorb about 50 points of damage by level 10, especially if they've been regularly increasing their constitution ability score and thus getting more item slots. So yes, a Knave character starts out tougher than a traditional old school character, but that difference slowly disappears as the levels go up. Anyway, that is my breakdown of how I took the math from old school D&D and distilled it down to a system that was completely classless, where you could just take your 6 ability scores and put points in them from 0 to 10 and create any kind of character that you want that would still remain compatible with the way that characters are supposed to work in BX or in old school essentials. Hope you found that interesting. It's the sort of thing that I think about all the time as a designer, so I figured maybe other people in the OSR who are making their own systems would want to hear a little bit of designer's commentary behind how Knave works. Hope you enjoyed it, and remember that the Kickstarter for Knave 2nd Edition is ongoing right now, link in the description below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you real soon.